Beyond that, I guess my question would be, how long is the National Guard supposed to stay in Chicago to quote unquote stabilize the city? There's a line in the movie Friday that Chris Tucker says that says, Debo tells me to shut up, and when he's around, I shut up, and when he leaves, I'll be talking again. And that's exactly what will happen in cases like this, where, okay, you can send the National Guard there, and maybe, people who are inclined to do crime will be spooked and they don't want to get, caught up by military or whatever. Okay, great. But as soon as that National Guard leaves, then what happens? That doesn't do anything to stabilize the city in any type of long-term way.
It alarms you about taking personal responsibility and using local control as a mayor to do something before someone else does. When I go to my child's room and I said, if you don't clean up your room, I'm going to come in and clean up my room. Now, I'm not planning to clean that room up every day, but I've told that child, hey, it's important that your room get cleaned. You better take ownership of it, or I'm going to ship some of your toys out. I'm not going to stay there forever, but that sets a tone.
Well, the question would
you
be,
don't punish the child if the child cleaned the room.
and how many times will you have that conversation with that child over and over and over again, threatening National Guard, threatening these things, and until there's something actually done as to why is the child not cleaning the room, there's the threats and the things won't take hold.
The child's cleaning the room, no. The child's cleaning the room. If you have a 20% crime reduction, if you say the numbers are false, prove it. You control the Justice Department. We report to the FBI on crime data. The FBI can challenge the crime data if they think it's false.
Mayor, the presence of political pressure to insert the National Guard or the state National Guard into Atlanta politics was there often. You had a collaborative relationship with things in such a way that you took control of situations. As a matter of fact, you stood on 75 one night.
That's right. But I
You
never,
took control.
hold on, that's right. But I never requested the use of the National Guard because I could handle my own affairs. And I had a relationship with a governor who respected the double-digit historic crime. With you about your show?
Yeah.
And this is what is happening to Washington, D.C. We're on CNN. They had the National Guard walking around picking up trash at a cost of $1 million a day.
Yeah, beautification project that some of them were laying mulch. Gentlemen, we got to wrap the conversation there, but I think it's also important to remind people that the scope of what the National Guard can do, short the
20%, and they called you in to talk to you about your show.
Yeah.
And this is what is happening to Washington, D.C. We're on CNN. D.C. We're on CNN. They had the National Guard walking around picking up trash at a cost of $1 million a day.
Yeah, beautification project that some of them were laying mulch. Gentlemen, we got to wrap the conversation there, but I think it's also important to remind people that the scope of what the National Guard can do, short the Insurrection Act, is very limited.
Indeed.
So it won't look anything in Chicago like it did in Washington, D.C. Ja, Mr. Mayor, Leo, thank you all for being with me. Quick break, and we'll be right back.
Trump's Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has fired the general in charge of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, otherwise known as DIA, because apparently the agency's assessment, although correct about our strike against the Iran nuclear facilities, angered Trump. My name is Dina Dahl with the Meidas Touch Network. Let's break this down. Now, the Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz was just fired by Trump, apparently because Trump was angered. As we know, the initial assessment that came out was that the nuclear facilities were not completely obliterated, as Trump went and said to the public, using that exact quote, obliterated. But the assessment that came out from the intelligence community was that there was significant, but not to the extent that Trump said that the damage was, and Trump was upset about this. Later assessments found that that initial assessment proved to be correct, and that the U.S. only caused significant damage to 1 out of the 3 nuclear sites. Despite the fact that this lieutenant general headed the agency who had a correct initial assessment, because the fact that his assessment was different than the lies that Trump said to the public, this warranted, apparently, his firing. Now, as we know, Trump is doing this by agency to agency. We see him doing it with the Federal Reserve Chair that he's trying to fire. We saw him do it when he didn't like the job numbers. We see what's happening with the CDC. Loyalty to Trump is more important than how somebody is doing their job. But especially when you are dealing with the defense of our country, firing somebody who is correct, but maybe not willing to continue your lie is especially dangerous. Now, Press Secretary Leavitt was just asked recently what the White House position was on the firing of federal workers who may not be loyalists. Take a listen and tell me if you feel any safer.
Administration officials are pushing back on the president's agenda, privately, publicly, however, should they fear to lose their jobs going forward?
Look, I think if you're doing your job well, and if you are executing on the vision and the promises that the president made to the public who elected him back to this office, then you should have no fear about your job. Just do your job. That's what this president wants to see. He wants to see people solving problems. He wants to see the people who have the privilege of serving the American taxpayer and the federal government abiding by the wishes of the American taxpayers who overwhelmingly reelected him in this cabinet to make America great again, or in this case, make America healthy again.
Now, Hegseth appears to be cleaning up military officials. Not only are they firing many people, but they're also revoking security clearances. Now, in addition to the Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz,
they jokingly call me the president of Europe. They call me the president of Europe, which is an honor. I like Europe and I like.
No, they don't. Nobody's calling you that. And why the press pool doesn't call that blatant lie out to your face is appalling to me, but of course not surprising at this point in the corporate press appeasement. Hi, my name is Suri Crow, and you're watching Meidas Touch Network. Well, here's what California Governor Gavin Newsom had to say about what foreign leaders really think about Donald Trump.
I had the privilege of meeting a lot of foreign leaders. I've had a chance.
What's the general? Not putting.
They're laughing behind his back. That did not happen. I'm making this clear.
They're telling.
Do not conflate what I just said with the meeting I had with the Denmark delegation.
No, it wasn't them. Other foreign leaders are laughing.
I've had dozens and dozens. Ambassadors met with him.
What are they saying?
They're laughing behind his back. He's being played everywhere. It's an embarrassment.
These radios are not like your old walkie.
Told this week as well.
Beverly Hills is, a great place. I have a house there. I had a house there. I used to stay a lot of time, spend a lot of time there. And a great place. Do you know that I have friends, they leave their trunk open for their car because they know they're going to be vandalized. They don't want the trunk ripped off in order for them to steal what's in the back. They leave the doors open so when they go in to steal the radio or whatever they take, that they don't rip off the door. They leave the doors totally open so the criminals, when they go and open the door, they'll have to break the windows and kill the car in order to steal whatever it is in the car that they're looking for. And that's at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Nobody lives like that. I have another friend, he has a garage, and in order to save his garage door, he leaves it open so that people can just walk into his garage, take whatever they want, and leave. But all the cars so many cars, I've been told this by many people, stars, big people, they leave their doors open so the doors aren't destroyed by these criminals. All over Los Angeles, this is taking place.
There is a level of delusion and pathological lying that should be headlining every single news outlet in the country. Seriously, let's play the imagine if Joe Biden said that game. Where's the New York Times nonstop coverage on Trump's mental fitness? Where the fuck is Jake Tapper now, huh? Crickets. The closest I could find this week to any critical headline of this absurd claim about people in Los Angeles leaving their homes open, I guess, so the next Golden State Killer could just whip on in, were these posts on X where Elizabeth says, "Are you kidding me? I'm from SoCal. Never ever in my life have I heard of this happening in any city."
democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Nermeen Sheikh. Israel's military has declared Gaza City a dangerous combat zone as it ramps up its offensive to seize the Gaza Strip's largest urban area. The announcement came as Israel carried out drone, artillery, and fighter jet attacks that killed at least 41 Palestinians since dawn, including children and people searching for food. Meanwhile, UNICEF warns Gaza's starvation crisis, due to Israel's blockade, is growing worse by the day, telling Al Jazeera, quote, famine is absolutely ravaging Gaza City. Thousands of the city's residents have been fleeing their homes, most of them heading towards the coast, as Israeli forces attack eastern suburbs.
What should we do? Do we stay here to die, to be broken? My 2 brothers died. My mother was martyred. My cousins were killed before my eyes. What should we do? We keep moving from one place to another until God above looks upon us.
Earlier today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said Israeli forces in Gaza recovered the body of Ilan Weiss, a 55-year-old Israeli abducted by Hamas in October 2023. 49 hostages remain in Gaza, at least 27 of whom are deceased, according to Israel. On Thursday, Israel's far-right Minister of Finance, Bezalel Smotrich, called for the annexation of the Gaza Strip if Hamas refuses to disarm. Hamas condemned his threat as, quote, an official call to exterminate Palestinians. Israeli forces have arrested at least 9 Palestinians in raids across the occupied West Bank. Among those detained is a school principal and the head of a village council. Separately, 2 Palestinians were shot and wounded by Israeli troops during a raid on Nablus, and a Palestinian man was shot in the feet by Israeli settlers east of Nablus. The continuing West Bank violence came as Israeli and Palestinian protesters gathered in Beit Jala for a weekly vigil, demanding an end to Israel's assault on Gaza.
We're here, Israelis and Palestinians from Combatants for Peace, in a joint vigil mourning the children of Gaza, thousands of children that have been killed. What was their crime? What did they deserve? Their futures have been stolen, and we're here to mourn them and to say no more.
More than 1 million people have been displaced in Pakistan after the worst flooding in more than 4 decades. Monsoon rain and the release of water from overflowing dams in India caused 3 major rivers to burst their banks, destroying crops and businesses in the region and flooding more than 1,400 villages in Punjab province. Since June, the floods have killed more than 800 people across the country in Pakistan. Thailand's Constitutional Court has removed Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from office. She was found guilty of ethics violations over a phone call to Cambodia's former leader. In a leaked recording of the call, she criticized the Thai military's conduct in clashes with Cambodia last month. Paetongtarn is the 5th Prime Minister since 2008 to be removed from office by Thailand's top court. 2 Lebanese soldiers were killed and 2 others were injured Thursday when an Israeli drone exploded in South Lebanon. This comes as Israel attacks Lebanon almost on a daily basis, despite reaching a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah in November. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council voted unanimously to end the UN's peacekeeping mission in Lebanon over the next 2 years. Currently, about 10,000 peacekeepers are stationed in southern Lebanon. In the past, the UN has accused Israel of firing on its peacekeepers in the region. This comes as the U.S. has been pushing for Hezbollah to disarm. Lebanon will reportedly present a plan this Sunday to encourage Hezbollah to surrender its weapons, after which Israel is expected to offer its counter-proposal to withdraw from Lebanon. In Minneapolis, family members have identified the 2 students killed Wednesday when a shooter fired over 100 rounds through the window of a church at the Annunciation Catholic School as children and other worshippers gathered for the first Mass of the new school year. 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel loved his family, friends, and, quote, any sport he was allowed to play. And 10-year-old Harper Moisky was described as a, quote, bright, joyful, and deeply loved 10-year-old who adored her big sister. 15 other children and 3 adults were wounded in the attack. On Thursday, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, without evidence, that he was looking into psychiatric medications as a cause of mass shootings. He repeated the unsubstantiated claim in a Fox News interview.
Launching studies on the potential contribution of some of the SSRI drugs and some of the other psychiatric drugs that might be contributing to violence.
Kennedy's comments drew backlash from Democratic lawmakers. Minnesota Senator Tina Smith wrote on social media, quote, "I dare you to go to Annunciation School and tell our grieving community, in effect, guns don't kill kids, antidepressants do. Just shut up. Stop peddling BS. You should be fired," Senator Smith wrote, using the expletive for BS. On Thursday, elected officials gathered at Minneapolis City Hall to demand immediate action on gun control. This is Congressmember Ilhan Omar.
This is something that is simple. A simple ban to make sure people who should not have access to these weapons do not get them, and then cause harm and trauma for generations to come in our communities. It is a simple ask.
Health Secretary RFK Jr. said Thursday his top deputy, Jim O'Neill, will serve as the acting head of the Centers for Disease Control after the White House abruptly fired CDC Director Susan Meidas less than a month after she was confirmed by the Senate. Meidas is challenging her dismissal. O'Neill is a biotech investor who's worked for the far-right billionaire Peter Thiel and has previously served as a speechwriter in the George W. Bush administration. He has no formal training in medicine. The New York Times is reporting that the Trump administration fired Meidas after she declined to fire agency leaders or to accept all recommendations from a vaccine advisory panel stacked by RFK Jr. with anti-vaccine activists. Meanwhile, staff at CDC's headquarters in Atlanta staged a mass walkout Thursday to support senior officials who stepped down in protest against RFK Jr.'s actions. Infectious disease experts Dimitri Daskalakis, Daniel Jernigan and Deborah Hootie thanked colleagues and promised to keep fighting to protect public health.
Whether it's preventing overdose, chronic disease, stopping Ebola at its source rather than letting it come to this continent, you are the people that protect America.
And what makes us great at CDC is following the science. And so let's get the politics out of public health.
We need Congress to intervene. We need our appropriations. We need to follow science. We need to have ethics back.
Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cookfield filed a federal lawsuit in Washington, D.C. Thursday, challenging what she called President Trump's unprecedented and illegal attempts to fire her. The case is likely to end up at the Supreme Court. President Trump's so-called border czar, Tom Homan, warned Thursday that Immigration and Customs Enforcement will ramp up immigration raids in Los Angeles and other sanctuary cities. Homan's threat came as the White House said it was seeking to use Naval Station Great Lakes, a U.S. military base on the outskirts of Chicago, as a staging ground for the Department of Homeland Security to carry out immigration raids. Meanwhile, the government of Rwanda said Thursday it had accepted 7 immigrants from the United States as part of a third-party deportation deal. The Trump administration is also seeking to deport people to South Sudan and Eswatini, even though they have no connection to those countries. Meanwhile, in Florida, officials are reportedly emptying an immigration detention camp in an Everglades swamp dubbed Alligator Alcatraz by Republicans after a federal judge ordered much of the facility to be closed over environmental violations. The U.S. Air Force is offering full military honors to Ashley Babbitt, the January 6th rioter who was shot by officers as she stormed the U.S. Capitol 4 years ago to protest President Trump's defeat in the 2020 election. This comes as a federal judge offered a refund to another January 6th rioter, Yvonne St. Cyr, who was ordered to pay $2,200 in restitution and fines. She had her felony conviction dropped by Trump in a blanket pardon of January 6th rioters. The Trump administration says the United States will withdraw from a UN review of its human rights record. Under the Universal Periodic Review, all 193 UN member states are required to present their human rights record for peer review every 4.5 years. This is the first time the US or any other UN member has refused to participate. In a statement, the ACLU said, quote, "This move is a chilling attempt to evade accountability, setting a terrible precedent that would only embolden dictators and autocrats and dangerously weaken respect for human rights at home and abroad." Republican lawmakers in Texas have advanced a bill to expand abortion restrictions. On Thursday evening, the Texas House of Republicans voted overwhelmingly in favor of House Bill 7, which allows private citizens to sue anyone who manufactures, distributes, mails, or provides abortion medication to or from Texas. Plaintiffs winning their lawsuits would receive a cash bounty of at least $100,000. The bill now heads to Texas's Republican-controlled Senate. In a statement, the ACLU of Texas said the legislation would, quote, "fuel fear among manufacturers and providers nationwide, while encouraging neighbors to police one another's reproductive lives, further isolating pregnant Texans, and punishing the people who care for them." Ahead of the Labor Day weekend, President Trump signed an executive order Thursday stripping union protections from federal employees. Under the order, several government agencies, including NASA, the National Weather Service, and the Office of the Commissioner for Patents, will end their collective bargaining agreements with unions. Trump cast his executive order as critical for protecting national security. On Thursday, members of 30 unions and organizations marched in Washington, D.C. to protest Trump's anti-worker policies. And the Reverend Al Sharpton led hundreds of demonstrators for the March on Wall Street Thursday to protest President Trump's assault on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and his attempts to control Democratic-led cities led by black mayors. New York State Assemblyman and mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani marched alongside Reverend Sharpton and Martin Luther King III. The other mayoral candidates, Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Eric Adams, did not attend the march. This is Zohran Mamdani addressing the crowd in Lower Manhattan.
As we stand here in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, as we stand here by Wall Street, where last year they had more than $40 billion in bonuses. We ask ourselves, how is it that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are still living in poverty? We ask ourselves, how is it that we have still yet to answer the question that Dr. King posed all those decades ago? Because what he said then and what we must answer now is, what good is it to have the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger?
That was Zohran Mamdani speaking at a march Thursday.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on
Failed drag queen, smoky-eyed sociopath, JD Just Dance Vance, who for expediency and efficiency and spite, I will from now on refer to as Lil Smokey, pun intended on the Lil Smokey. He knows, you guys, he knows, because they've told Trump, because Trump's talking about, I got to get into heaven. People say I'm not doing well. The dementia's on fleek. We've got muffin top cankles. We've got the bruising on the hands. Everybody in there knows that the curtains are about to close on this guy. And JD Vance is right there, chomping at the bit, ready to get in. Put up this tweet from Newswire. Vance says he's ready to be president while praising Trump's health. This is what they do. Praising Trump's health, but also I'm ready to be president. The MAGA movement is always an exercise in contradiction, and that is on purpose. It is on purpose to say we're the party of law and order. And then you have a convicted felon that pardons felons. They on purpose say, oh, these masked agents, they have to have masks over their face because otherwise they're going to get doxxed. When the biggest doxer on the planet is Donald Trump, that doxes the judiciary, his opponents, anybody that speaks out against him. And Little Smokey is escalating the gaslighting, and he is going after Mamdani, Zohran Mamdani in New York. Play the video.
Does Mondami, when you hear him speak, is this a man who feels gratitude for the United States of America? Is this a man who feels grateful for all of the opportunities, the incredible bounty of this country? I don't know the guy, but my sense is he's had a very good life in this country. It would be nice for him to occasionally show a sense of gratitude instead of just attacking the United States for all of its problems.
You bring up
Pumps ripping.
I'm so confused on why JD Vance thinks everybody needs to thank him all the time. What in the fuck is he talking about? Zelensky didn't say thank you. Mondami doesn't say thank you. Like, shut up. You betrayed your city. I mean, I'm sorry, your state when you wrote Hillbilly Elegy and did all that. Then you ran out and got queer-eyed by Peter Thiel. You can't fucking wait for Donald Trump to die, JD Vance. This was all part of the oligarchy plan, and you're in there doing the bidding. So he's praising Trump's health as he has a hard dick about ascending to the presidency.
Has he ever been grateful for immigration, that he got a wife he maybe allegedly loves? I mean, I don't know. I've heard him kind of talk about it's not her problem that she's white. Has he not been grateful for multiculturalism, that he has multicultural children? I've never heard any gratitude about that. All I've heard him is demean immigrants. All I've heard is him prop up thinly veiled racist attacks. All I've seen him do is support criminals. All I've seen him do is try to uphold the erosion of the rule of law. This guy, it's projection because he has no gratitude for anything because he hasn't had to work hard. He had a net worth pumps $1 million from Hillbilly Elegy. Peter Thiel and the other evil oligarchs needed someone that they could own. They take JD Vance. Now he's worth over $10 million. He is nothing short of a little smoky sociopath prostitute. That's just what he is, like so many politicians. And here's little Smokey, this guy who there is video after video after video of him describing how Trump is corrupt, how he's crazy, how he's a threat to democracy. And JD Vance has the gall and the audacity to get on camera and talk about authenticity. And let that sink in. He is the most inauthentic prostitute in the American government right now. Lil Smokey is. And he has the fucking audacity to speak about authenticity as though he is an expert on it. Play the clip.
Up humor. Gavin Newsom sure thinks he's a comedian these days on social media, and so does much of the left. His polling numbers have gone way up since he started mimicking President Trump on social media. Yeah. What do you make of Governor Newsom?
I make of Governor Newsom that you said he's mimicking Donald Trump, and I think that's exactly right. The lesson of Donald Trump, the lesson of President Trump in American politics is you've got to be authentic to yourself. And when I see Gavin Newsom trying to act like Donald Trump, that's the opposite of authenticity. He's not trying to be Gavin Newsom, whoever that is. He's trying to be
whoever that is,
copy of Donald Trump, and it just doesn't work. You can't mimic the king. You can't mimic the master. You ought to just go and be yourself. And I think that the American people would like that a lot more than a cheap imitation of the President of the United States.
Okay, nobody is trying to mimic Donald Trump more than Lil Smokey. And furthermore, Gavin Newsom is not mimicking. He's mocking relentlessly, and it is a layup, and his approval ratings are rising. But JD Vance, everything that he said there, the lack of self-awareness and the statement that you and I say a lot, Pumps, you can't shame the shameless. That's why he's our Lil Smokey sociopath. This is a man that is a failed drag queen. He tried to be a drag queen. Pictures are all over the internet. He failed at it. So what does he do? He starts hating what he didn't have the authenticity to be or the courage to be. This man is evil. He is more organized and more ambitious than Donald Trump. He's more connected with people who have far more nefarious intents. And he is waiting in the lurch, ready to pounce into the presidency. And I believe, viewer, they know Kanks is about to drop dead. Alex Jones gives him within 12 months, which I think is generous. And they have to militarize and get big balls and all these other freaks close to all the voting machines so that they can do whatever they can to keep their evil supermajority. And think about this, Pumps. This is what drives me fucking crazy growing up in a Republican red state our whole lives. the founders, the Constitution, freedom, America, land of opportunity, all that shit, they never talk about anymore because that's not what they want anymore. They want a dictatorship. They want to control thought. They want to control other human beings.
They want to control it for everyone other than white men with money. And let's just remember, Usha Vance is a second generation immigrant. But here's a couple things I just want to say. JD Vance, were you authentic when you called Trump America's Hitler? Are you authentic now that you kiss his ass? And JD Vance, are you thankful for Sephora? Are you thankful every day? Have you called out thank you for eyeliner? Because where is the fucking gratitude for Sephora? I've had it.
Oh my God, Pups, that's so good. He has no gratitude.
No gratitude for Sephora.
And he wears it every day. This man is a failed drag queen, and he sits and, God only knows what he had to do with Peter Thiel to increase his net worth.
Oh, well, I think we can all figure it out.
Yeah. And let's just remember, you guys, this is the party that crashed Grindr twice. This is the party whose leader tried to give a microphone a blowjob. This is a party whose leader, who's so authentic, was Trump authentic when he was talking about the size of Arnold Palmer's cock with glee and utter excitement. I mean, literally foaming at the mouth. He's so excited. It's unbelievable, these people. And it's not the gay stuff. It's not the bisexual stuff. It's not the eyeliner. We support all of that. Freedom of expression. We actually believe in that. It's the hypocrisy and being cruel to people that in secret you truly are. Lastly, the Lincoln Project is still around, and they know how to occupy real estate in the MAGA movement because they used to be Republicans. And they got to Trump, and it was an absolute no. And they're making videos like this about Lil Smokey and Kanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to announce that Senator J.D. Vance has the overwhelming support of this convention to be the next Vice President of the United States.
Who has heard the poem called The Snake? On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. Take me in, oh tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, oh tender woman, sighed the vicious snake.
I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious.
She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite.
Fellow Christians, everyone is watching us when we apologize for this man. Lord, help us.
I have saved you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me, heavens why?
He was fundamentally divisive, arrogant.
You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die.
He's leading our political discourse to a very negative place.
Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin.
Might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole.
You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
Teenagers are building businesses with AI, while the only AI you know is ChatGPT.
Let's be real. Most people over 40 use ChatGPT like it's Google. Copy, paste, ask a basic question, move on. That's not how smart people use AI. Tomorrow, we're starting the 28-day AI challenge for beginners over 40. Just 15 minutes a day to level up. In 1 week, you'll feel unstoppable. In 2 weeks, you'll have your strategy. In a month, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. Tap the screen to join us.
Here's the thing. Trump is the most paranoid motherfucker on the planet. And we know authoritarians surround themselves with incompetent people because that means they can still be the star. This shit with Trump is going to make him crazy. And here's the thing. With Vance, and now Vance is coming out saying this is going to make Trump bananas, and I'm here for it.
I'm 100% here for it. We are set. Kanks, we need to keep highlighting what JD Vance is doing and who he's colluding with, because he is an inauthentic little snake. All right, that's all we have for today. Like and subscribe. We'll see you all later. Thing about themselves, even little kids that have been shot at school. They try to be the victim of this. They are the biggest snowflakes this country has to offer, and they constantly play victim. Journalist Jen Psaki with MSNBC sent out the following tweet. Prayer is not freaking enough. Prayer does not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers. That is a very rational position. Mm-hmm. That is a opposition to the gaslighting that the NRA and all of these MAGA Christians who want to tote their guns around and care so much more about profit than they do little kids getting shot in school, which is a uniquely American problem. Well, MAGA completely melts down. Our religion is under attack. Jen Psaki's attacking our religion. Put it up, Kylie. Lil Smokey, who we call JD Vance, who's our smoky eye sociopath, who we call Little Smokey, he says, we pray because our hearts are broken. We pray because we know God listens. We pray because we know that God works in mysterious ways and can inspire us to further action. Why do we feel the need to attack other people for praying when kids were just killed praying? Well, Lil Smokey, let me explain this to you. God working in mysterious ways with all of the prayer hasn't worked because school shootings have escalated. Access to guns have escalated. More kids get shot and shot and shot in the United States of America. And the number one killer of children in the pro let's everybody breed and have a bunch of kids party is guns. And they're the biggest pro guns. This is gaslighting. This is them trying to be the victims when kids have been shot. It is utter bullshit and irresponsible and makes me sick.
It makes me sick too. And I am with Jen Psaki. Shove it up your ass with the thoughts and prayers. It doesn't work. If it makes you feel better, JD Vance, swing for the fences, get down on your knees. But we need real legislation regarding guns. Full stop. I don't care what you do in your private time, but the government needs to put regulations on guns. And I get so sick of these Republicans. We're so pro-child. No, you're not. Or you would make children safe at school, and they don't because of money from the NRA. And equating this with religion is just ridiculous.
This is a typical religious. They persecute, persecute, persecute. And then when you call them out for weaponizing their own faith, then they play victim. And if you notice, this happens with every issue with MAGA. Next up, we have big, hypocritical, fake Christian Caroline Leavitt playing victim. Play the clip.
For you. Sure. Democrats, including former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Bray, attacked prayer and pushed gun control in the aftermath of yesterday's shooting. What's the White House's response to their comments?
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride.
Okay, I want to stop right there.
Are you researching dental implants?
There's a lot of dental offices.
He was fired just 3 weeks before he was set to retire.
And now he's becoming an...
President Trump has revoked Secret Service protection for former Vice President Kamala Harris. A senior White House official tells NBC News the vice president typically only gets 6 months of protection after leaving office. But a Secret Service official says President Biden had signed an executive memorandum in January to extend protections for Harris to 18 months. It's only been about 7 months since Harris left office. A senior advisor to Harris issued this statement. In response, the vice president is grateful to the United States Secret Service for their professionalism, dedication, and unwavering commitment to safety. This is not the first time that Mr. Trump has ended Secret Service protections for someone. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton had his security detail terminated just hours after Trump returned to the White House in January. Bolton served in Trump's first administration, and his home and his offices were searched by the FBI earlier this week. Protections were also revoked. And that is my phone going off. I apologize. Protections were also revoked for Mr. Trump's former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and a former top aide, Brian Hook. Then in March, Trump ended Secret Service protections for President Biden's adult children, Hunter and Ashley. What does it all mean? Let's bring in Washington Bureau Chief at USA Today, Susan Page, and MSNBC senior Washington correspondent and co-host of The Weekend, Eugene Daniels. Susan, quickly, I mean, this news is just coming into us, but what's the legality of this? If President Biden had extended the protection and then President Trump overturns President Biden's offer, is this just like an executive order that a president can overrule and so he can go ahead with this? And what do you think it means?
Absolutely. It's up to the president. It was up to Biden to extend it. It's up to Trump to decide that's not what he wants to do. That's why you want to pass laws instead of just signed executive orders, because they have more staying power. You know, in a way, it's not surprising. Traditionally, vice presidents get 6 months of protection after they leave office. On the other hand, we live in a very violent time. We know that every day with reports of violence like we see in Minneapolis now. And it comes at a really awkward time for Kamala Harris, whose book is coming out in days, and a big book tour is planned. And now the security arrangements I'm sure she was counting on for that tour have just been taken away. And by the way, I've been trying to get an interview with her about her new book. So if she's watching,
listening,
yes,
okay.
I'm anyway. But I do think
message out from Susan.
I don't think it's an outrage. It's not unprecedented. It's not one of those kinds of things. It does create some complications, I think, for the former vice president.
Eugene, why did President Biden feel that there was a need to extend it? Was it because of what Susan is talking about, that we live in this time of unprecedented animosity towards not just people, but politicians, as we also saw up in Minneapolis a few months ago?
Before I got here, I was on the phone with a bunch of former Biden and former Harris officials and current Harris senior advisors. And, the sense was at the time in the administration was, look, at the end of the day, this is a black woman in America. We've seen the death threats and the kinds of things that have come her way from the Secret Service has been working on for years. So they wanted to extend it. It would have ended next summer. And I was talking to a few of the aides, and all of them said the same word to me, which is, this is predictable, right? Were they prepared for it, as Susan's saying, with her book tour coming up? No, because the Secret Service works for weeks on these things. The security apparatus is planned for a very long time, so they weren't prepared for it. But it's also a piece of how Donald Trump works, right? Because it is retributive, right? It's not just, we want to save money on the Secret Service, or, this is weird. They do it because, some of the Harris folks said because of distractions from all of the things that are swirling around. And two, just because he doesn't like Vice President Kamala Harris. At the end of the day, that is what I heard over and over and over again. And it speaks to how Donald Trump operates. He used the government to deal with his own personal animosity with people.
And then, of course, we saw the FBI raiding John Bolton's house. We have no idea whether one thing leads to another thing, but...
And that's, of course, much more serious. Because that is the use of the judicial system, perhaps, against someone who has been critical of him. I mean, that is, when you talk about the thing with Kamala Harris, not unprecedented. The thing with John Bolton, that's pretty unprecedented. Okay.
Hi, I'm Andy Levian, General Counsel at the DNC. We just sued President Trump and Doge, and I hope you will support us by donating to our fight fund. Here's what you need to know. Trump signed an executive order to impose radical changes on how Americans register to vote, cast a ballot, and participate in our democracy, all of which threaten to disenfranchise lawful voters, and none of which is legal. It makes it harder for married women who've changed their names to register to vote and forces states to throw out lawful mail ballots. If states don't comply, they could lose federal funding. And somehow, as we've come to expect from this administration, it gets even worse. The executive order also gives DOJ access to the data of millions of voters, sensitive personal information handed over to Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire. The threat is real. After floating a third term, Trump and Musk are taking steps to rig our elections. That's why the DNC filed a lawsuit to stop them. We're already suing to block Trump's hostile takeover of the Federal Election Commission, and now we're gearing up for yet another legal battle that will shape the future of our country. Winning these is not easy, especially when your opponents are the president and the richest man in the world, so we're relying on a surge of grassroots support right now to help us put an end to these illegal power grabs. I hope you're with us. Thank you.
The president has just fired the director of presidential personnel at the White House, the person in charge of hiring people into the Trump administration. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I said he fired him. He actually named him to be an ambassador, because in this second presidential term, Trump doesn't fire anyone anymore. When he wants to fire someone, he instead just makes them an ambassador. And it's always because of some kind of mess. Trump's national security advisor, you'll remember, he bizarrely added the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine onto an insane group text about classified forthcoming military operations. Michael Waltz, Trump national security advisor, did not get fired for that. He instead was named ambassador to the United Nations. Trump apparently wanted to get rid of the U.S. attorney in New Jersey so he could give a big New Jersey job to his former personal defense lawyer, whose other legal experience was mostly just working for a parking garage company. Well, okay, in that case, you're going to need to get rid of the existing U.S. attorney in New Jersey. So voila, that existing U.S. attorney in New Jersey will now be the ambassador to Namibia. Sure, why not? The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., appears to be no longer dating the Fox News personality Kimberly Guilfoyle. Well, congratulations, Kimberly Guilfoyle. That means it's time for you to be named ambassador to Greece. The president's inexplicable IRS commissioner choice, Billy Long, a professional cattle auctioneer by trade, he astonishingly got confirmed by the United States Senate to lead the IRS, whereupon he arrived at the IRS and there was a sudden widespread revelation, oh my God, this man cannot lead the IRS. So now, voila, Billy Long is named the new ambassador to Iceland. This is what happens. You don't get fired. You become the ambassador to some country that doesn't deserve it. And now we have this latest one, Sergio Gore, the head of presidential personnel at the White House. He is credited by the administration with vetting and hiring something like 4,000 people into this administration. And boy, have they vetted and picked some winners. We don't know why Sergio Gore has suddenly been pushed out as the White House personnel director. They've announced that he's going to be ambassador to India now for some reason, but this follows a bizarre series of reports in the right-wing pro-Trump tabloid, The New York Post. Reports in which the Post claimed that Sergio Gore's real name was Sergio Gorokovsky, that he claimed to have been born in Malta, but that he had not actually been born in Malta. He had been born in Soviet Uzbekistan. And, again, the New York Post claiming that while Mr. Gore himself was supposedly responsible for background checks and security checks on all hires into the Trump administration, the Post reported that he himself for months had refused to fill out the paperwork to allow a background check on himself, which meant that he had only been able to get, reportedly, a temporary security clearance, and then that reportedly had expired. After the New York Post published its report on Mr. Gore in June, they said he finally did submit his SF-86 form to start his background check months late. And then, according to the Post, quote, several sources said that the FBI recently completed a background check into Mr. Gore. The findings of that review stoked internal intrigue over the past week as those findings were, quote, reviewed by West Wing bosses.